Okay, so last night I had a dream and I want to talk about it. It had several different scenes. Okay, the first thing is I was seeing from the perspective of someone else. And whoever it was had a really, really nice house. So first I want to describe the scene. It must have been in like Colorado or the Rocky Mountains or somewhere in California. But the house, all the houses in the neighborhood, they weren't the type of house that has a really big yard and a bunch of grass, because the ground had rocks and big boulders sticking out of the ground. So the houses were built like on stilts, on to level the ground instead of anyway. This guy lived in this house that was all like a reddish color wood. It was nice, and it had a bunch of patios and decks all around, big wooden decks, and it had multiple levels. It was a really, really nice house, and there was a lot of big windows, and there was a lot of big, I want to say pine trees, or possibly even like sequoias. I mean, the neighborhood, it was like one of those neighborhoods where the road is like a big hill, a bunch of hills, and everybody's driveway has to go around big boulders and up around. I mean, and every house had to be designed and engineered and built specifically for the land, because the ground was like rocky. And the house had four levels. It had like a ground level, and then it had the or a basement level, and then a ground level, and a upstairs. And each level had a bunch of really cool decks and patios, and but none of the houses had a big yard. They just had decks and patios and a great view. And it was a beautiful sunny day. The sky was blue. The trees were green. It was like a few really white billowy clouds in the sky. I mean, it was beautiful. And you could tell it was a multi-million-dollar home that this guy lived in. And you could tell also that there was other homes in the neighborhood. And in the vision, okay, so the first scene is I'm seeing this big expensive house, and I'm seeing from the perspective of somebody who lived there in this nice house. And the first scene was inside the house, and it was two guys, and they were just chit-chatting and talking and laughing and kind of like friends, like he had a friend over. And I don't know what that has to do with it, but I remember seeing the inside of the house, and it was, I mean, it's one of those homes that had to be custom designed by an architect specifically for that piece of property. Anyway, the next scene, there was a drone, a big drone hovering through the neighborhood, and it was flying down the street really slowly, and it kind of reminded me of that movie Star Wars, when that little robot comes. Remember that part of the I think it was the second Star Wars where they're on the planet where it was all ice and snow, and the Empire sent out this little drone robot to scan the land. Well, this was a drone that looked like the regular quadcopter, but it was like the size of like a Volkswagen Beetle, like a small car. It was like the size of I want to say like a little Honda Civic. It was a big drone, but it was a quadcopter, and it had hanging from the bottom, it had this big round pod with a bunch of like cameras and sensors, and it was flying really slowly through the neighborhood, and you could see it was like you could tell that there was somebody somewhere in some remote place, and it wasn't the type of drone that somebody bought. It wasn't it was a military surveillance drone. And this thing was big, it was heavy, it had steel plates on it, and it kind of resembled the build, and I gotta say it this way, it was built kind of like a garbage dump truck, in that it had a bunch of metal all around it, almost like it was built to withstand being shot at. And it had this pod underneath where it had these cameras, like a little, I want to say a little, not cylindrical, but spherical pod with, and I remember seeing like 3 or 4 different cameras, and it had some sort of sensors, and it was flying, and it was hovering. It went like it flew around, and it was circling and flying really slow, and you could tell that somebody was controlling this drone from a remote place and surveilling this neighborhood. Okay? And then it started shooting out lights. Like, it was broad daylight, but it's almost like it when it came to the windows of the house, it would shoot a bright light into the house to try to light up the inside of the house. And the guy that I was seeing it from sees this drone. First, it's down the street, and you could see it like hovering around the house. And then it went to the next house, and it hovered around the house, and then it turned on a bright light and tried to shine into the house to see in the house. And then it moved, and it kept moving and moving and moving, and it was like, and then it came to my house. And remember, I'm seeing from somebody else's perspective, and I like ducked out and went and hid behind like a cupboards or in some nook of the house, in a closet or something. And then it flew on to the next house, and it went through the neighborhood systematically looking into each home. Then the next scene, again, it's still a beautiful, sunny, clear day. And this guy lived up in the mountains. It's not like he had like a big lawn and a bunch of houses next door. He had like his house, and then a couple 100 yards away was another house, and they were all multi-million-dollar homes. And there was a lot of big granite, and his view was of a mountain on the other side of a valley. Like, he had a beautiful view. Anyway, the next scene, I see this big Russian plane, and I knew it was Russian. I don't know how I knew it was Russian. It looked different. It wasn't an American plane. And it was flying low, and then I remember it had to like make a really hard like climb to get over a mountain. It like was flying along, and it went over this mountain, and it flew over the mountain. Then the next scene, now this is where it gets scary. Now it was like, I want to say it was, the first 2 scenes were like bright daylight, middle of the day. But now the third scene, the sun was starting to set, but it was still daylight. It was so the first scene was probably like 10 in the morning or noon. And then the second scene was about the same time of day, like middle of the day. But the third scene, I remember it was like maybe 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Like, I want to say the sun was lower in the sky and the shadows were a little bit bigger. And you could hear a helicopter in the distance. Now, this place where they lived was remote enough that, I don't know if you've ever lived in a remote place, that you couldn't hear any freeways nearby. There wasn't, basically you could hear the wind through the trees. You could hear the birds chirping. And so a plane flying by, you could hear it. And so now I'm hearing this chopper, and I hear this helicopter coming towards, and I'm looking out, and I see it coming, right? And then it doesn't land, but it hovers, like, not my next door neighbor, but 2 homes over. And the homes have kind of large property, so maybe a couple 100 yards away. I see it come down and it hovers over a rock, and then a bunch of guys come jumping out. Now, the helicopter didn't land, but I saw a bunch of guys come jumping out. That was the third scene. Then the fourth scene, I was under the house. And the house, remember the topography, I was like, there was rocks under the house, like a bunch of big, heavy boulders. And the every like 15 or 20 feet was like a big, heavy-duty concrete part of the house foundation, and then a heavy duty like I want to say like a plank or whatever it is, like I want to say like a 4x8 big heavy duty in other words, he was underneath the house, and he was hiding because the people who had got off the helicopter went through the neighborhood and gathered everybody up. And he was under the house, and they didn't have dogs, and that's in the vision. I was hiding under the house, and I could see through the like I could see horizontally through, like there was wood part of the deck. The deck was made so that there was like a level here and a level here. And then over here was another level. And I was looking through the deck towards the like the street. And now the other direction would be like if I had turned around, was a big view and a downward slope. And there was nothing that direction except for the view. And so I was facing the street now. And I could see the guys who had rounded up everybody in the neighborhood. And I was hiding under the house, and I was looking through the cracks in the deck, and through the patio, past the front yard, into the street. And they had gathered the people in the street right in front of my house, and they killed them all. And I was just like hiding. And that's all I remember. And somehow I survived. Somehow everybody left. And then the whole neighborhood was like vacant, like nobody there. And that was the dream. And I had that dream last night, and it was such a clear dream that I had you know how when you wake up you forget you had a dream? Like this morning I woke up, I went and did this, I did that. And then now it's the evening. Now it's like 9 o'clock at night. And I suddenly remembered I had the dream. And I have total recall of it. Almost as if I had really experienced it just yesterday. I mean, like total, complete. I mean, it was a vivid, real dream. I remember the fear. I remember feeling the fear in the dream that the guy would have felt. I remember hiding underneath the house and seeing the pillars and the foundation of the house. And I was on top of like a granite rock and kind of crawling on my stomach. And behind me, you could see part of the view from underneath the house of the like the mountains in that direction. And I could see onto the street. Wow. What a crazy, scary dream. I believe that's something that might actually happen. That's what's going to happen after the nuclear strike. When Russia and China take over, that's another thing the Lord showed me, is people with really nice, rich homes that don't get destroyed, okay? Chinese communists are going to come here and they're going to come here with a group of soldiers, and they're going to say, this is my house now. You can stay, but you're going to be doing the dishes, doing the laundry. You're up at 6 a.m. You're going to be giving me a back massage. You're going to be making dinner. You're going to do and they're going to turn people into their personal slaves, and they're going to take your property, and they're going to take your house, and you're going to have the mark of the beast. And if you mess up or get out of line, they don't care. They'll send you straight to a prison camp. As long as but if you're willing to be their personal servant, they'll keep you around, keep you alive, and keep you fed. It's going to be crazy.